Immaculate Constellation. That phrase, it just sort of grabs you, doesn't it?
No, it really does. And it's tied to this supposedly top secret UAP reconnaissance program.
Yeah, and the really stunning part is the idea that its existence, maybe even its findings, might have been deliberately hidden from Congress, kept from people who are meant to oversee these things.
Absolutely. And look, if you've been following this topic, you've probably heard whispers about Immaculate Constellation for, months now?
It's been bubbling under the surface.
So today, we're really diving into some very recent stuff. The author of the Immaculate Constellation report, which actually made it into the congressional record, has decided to, go public.
Okay, hold on. Let's unpack that right away. This is someone who worked in classified programs, right? Had high-level security clearances, took oaths.
Top secret SCI, yeah. Oath of secrecy, the whole deal.
And now they're breaking that silence. That's huge. So the big question for us today has to be, why? Why risk everything to do that now?
Well, you always hear the standard arguments for secrecy with UAPs, don't you?
Sure. Protecting tech, military advantage, don't let China or Russia know what we've got.
Exactly. Those are the usual reasons given. National Security 101, essentially.
This author, they're pushing back hard on that. They're saying, hang on, the secrecy, it's costing us something fundamental.
Yeah, their argument is really profound. It's about human dignity, freedom, even scientific progress. They frame it as humanity's right to know if we're alone or not.
That's a powerful counterargument.
And they paint this picture of the secrecy itself. It's not just a locked file cabinet somewhere. They describe it as a parallel reality.
Wow, a parallel reality.
Yeah, something all pervasive that they believe has, corrupted parts of society. They see it as serving just a tiny elite.
And used to intimidate people, even destroy lives. I mean, those are incredibly strong claims.
They are. And it underlines the massive personal risk this person is taking. We're talking potentially life imprisonment, even in theory, execution. And they stress, look, they tried the official channels. They tried raising concerns the right way internally. That suggests the system itself might be part of the problem.
So who is this person? What's their background that led them here?
Okay, so they have a degree in international affairs, worked at a think tank for a bit.
Standard DC path, sounds like.
Kind of. Then they moved into an intelligence agency inside the Pentagon, and importantly, their work fell under the umbrella of countering WMD's weapons of mass destruction.
Okay, so serious stuff, not just UFOs.
Definitely not. And that role came with that top secret SCI clearance we mentioned. SCI means sensitive compartmented information access to really tightly held secrets, sources, methods.
Right, so their concerns aren't just theoretical. They come from seeing things firsthand, relating to broader national security issues.
Exactly. They also talked a bit about how the Pentagon works, lots of contractors.
Oh yeah, the contractor ecosystem is huge.
And the potential for stovepipes where information just doesn't get shared between teams, even if they're working on related problems.
Yeah, right. Silos everywhere. And they questioned the oversight of all that contractor work.
They did. They mentioned starting out feeling proud, like they were part of an important mission.
But that changed.
Yeah, over time, disillusionment set in, based on what they were seeing.
Okay, so that sets the stage. And this disillusionment, this background, it leads us to the main event.
Yeah.
The Immaculate Constellation revelation. How did that actually happen?
Right. Now, it's key to understand. This person had a long-term interest in UFOs, secret histories, that kind of thing.
But not like a typical UFO guy.
No, not fixated on aliens necessarily. Their starting assumption, like many in defense circles, was probably advanced human tech, Russian, Chinese,
Okay, so they weren't looking for this. How did they stumble across it?
It sounds almost mundane, actually. They were working on a shared server within the Office of the Secretary of Defense, OSD, not some super secret isolated network, but a more general one.
Okay.
And their job at that moment, organizing misfiled documents, just cleaning up the digital clutter.
Happens to the best of us.
Yeah.
And
then they find this file labeled something like 2018 Shriver War Game.
Shriver War Game. Sounds pretty routine, right? Like a simulation brief.
Exactly. Nothing about the title screamed top secret hidden UAP program. It was totally accidental. They opened it up.
And the first slide?
Just a generic title slide. Banner across the top. No classification markings visible there. Just said Immaculate Constellation.
Okay.
And below that, standard stuff logos for the Shriver War Game, Air Force Space Command, as it was then known.
So at this point, they're probably thinking, okay, Immaculate Constellation is just the code name for this exercise.
That was the logical assumption. But then came the next slide.
And this is where it gets weird.
This is where it gets very weird, because whose face is on the slide? Luis Elizondo.
Whoa, okay. The A-chip guy. The one who went public in 2017. What's he doing in a 2018 war game brief?
Exactly. And the text on that slide explained the purpose of Immaculate Constellation. It identified it as a USAP, an unacknowledged special access program.
Unacknowledged, meaning super secret, off the books almost.
Right. And crucially, the slide apparently stated it was set up after Elizondo blew the whistle on ATIP in 2017.
So it reads like a direct reaction. Like, okay, ATIP's blown, we need something even deeper, even quieter.
That's certainly the implication. The author is seeing this connection, Immaculate Constellation linked to the ATIP fallout, but still no explicit mention of aliens or anything like that yet, just a highly classified program.
So they keep reading, obviously.
Naturally. And the document, as they recall, specifically labels Immaculate Constellation a SAP Special Access Program.
Which means it should have strict handling protocols, right? Very limited access.
Precisely. And finding a file referencing a SAP on a shared, less secure server without the proper SAP markings, that immediately suggested something was wrong. Security lapse, maybe mishandling.
It does sound like this was an internal response, maybe rushed to Elizondo going public.
The file's last access date was 2018, fitting that timeline. And interestingly, the author saw a name in the access logs they recognized. Someone they were later told didn't even work at the Pentagon then. Which is another layer of oddity. Who was accessing this?
Okay, so after the Elizondo slide, identifying it as a SAP created post-ATIP, did they realize then how sensitive this was?
Not fully, apparently. They mentioned not having had deep formal training on SAP markings at that exact point, so it just looked mislabeled, misfiled, not necessarily like alarm bells ringing about accessing something forbidden.
Got it. So what did the document actually say Immaculate Constellation did? What was its mission?
Well, the very next slide 3, gets right into it, showcasing results, essentially. It detailed an intelligence event, Pacific Ocean, at night.
Okay.
And the focus, several Russian naval intelligence ships, AGs basically.
Russian spy ships.
And right above them, a large black triangle, just hanging there in the sky.
A black triangle, like the classic UAP ship. Was it a clear picture?
They described it as a clear color still photograph, not blurry dots.
Wow. Okay, and the perspective.
That was interesting too. It looked like it was taken from really close to the water. The implication being maybe a submarine, some kind of submersible asset, took the picture undetected.
Okay, a U.S. submersible potentially watching Russians watch a triangle. But here's the kicker, right? The Russian reaction.
That's the most bizarre part. Zero discernible reaction from the Russian ships. Nothing.
Wait, a giant triangle hovers over your intelligence ships?
Yeah.
And nothing. No evasive maneuvers, no signals, no weapons tracking.
Apparently not, which is just deeply strange.
What did the analysis in the document say about that?
It suggested the Russians knew the triangle was going to be there, that they had prior knowledge.
Prior knowledge.
Yeah, like maybe their ships were there specifically to observe it, or maybe even interact with it somehow.
Interact with it. So was there any hint it might be Russian tech? That they were testing their own stuff?
Not in this specific document, no. And the author hasn't seen anything since then suggesting it was Russian. But that lack of reaction, it just hangs there. Could be they knew about it, couldn't do anything, or something else entirely.
If this was off Kamchatka, like the author recalled, and the ships were just sitting there for days, it makes you wonder, were they communicating? Was it scheduled?
It certainly opens up those possibilities, but we can't say for sure just from this one document.
Okay, so Immaculate Constellation. This first glimpse is this triangle over Russian ships. What else did the files show about its scope?
After the triangle incident, the next few slides shifted gears. They focused on a different type of UAP.
Let me guess. Orbs.
Bingo, orbs. Which the author mentioned felt a little anticlimactic because they'd already seen official footage of orbs elsewhere in the Pentagon.
Right, orbs seem to be a recurring theme in official reports.
So these following pages showed orb imagery from different places around the world, which sort of solidified the idea that Immaculate Constellation's mission was global UAP data collection. ISR intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance on UAPs, basically.
So it acted like a clearinghouse, collecting UAP data from military assets worldwide, presumably briefing senior leaders.
That seems to be the logical function, yes, though the doc didn't explicitly say who got briefed.
And this whole Shriver War Games file, how long was it?
Pretty short, about 12 to 15 pages they recalled.
And that was it. That was the only time they saw the name Immaculate Constellation until they wrote their own report later.
That's what they said, just that one accidental find.
Incredible. But finding it was just the start, wasn't it? Later they read transcripts involving Sean Kirkpatrick, the former Air Honor Director. How did that connect?
Yeah, that seems to have been another key piece. Those transcripts apparently detailed discussions about a possible legacy program.
Legacy program, meaning old, potentially off the books UAP stuff?
Exactly. Something potentially running for maybe 60 years with no real congressional oversight.
60 years. Wow.
And Senator Rubio apparently asked point blank in one briefing something like, well, what the hell is the executive branch doing? Which really shows the level of frustration and concern.
You can understand why.
Yeah.
And then David Grusch comes forward.
Right. The author said watching Grusch's process, his claims, it resonated. They mentioned seeing internal distortions and just unusual behaviors inside the government bureaucracy when it came to this topic.
Suggesting maybe the government doesn't even have full control or understanding.
That's the unsettling implication, isn't it? It points towards this idea that maybe nobody's fully in charge, or that the system itself is sort of reacting strangely.
Which leaves us, and you listening, with a pretty heavy question, I think.
Definitely. What does it actually mean if something this significant, this potentially reality-bending, has been operating in the shadows outside the normal checks and balances for decades? It's a lot to think about.